just new records on gold, every few weeks lately, you can see the tide is definitely turning, and people are panicked. People are worried about what's going to happen to the dollar, and I think they're looking for safe haven, places to put money in, to hedge against inflation, so to speak, something they can sell back into the market, whatever the dollar means at that time, once all this financial hubbub is over. Mm-hmm. So we'll see.
I remember specifically being in here one day when a little old lady from Pasadena came walking in, and you carried 4 monster boxes of maples.
That's become a regular thing.
4 monster boxes?
Yeah.
In one shot? I was like, man, look at this.
Yeah, we were going to wholesale once every 2 months up until the last year or so. Now we're going once or twice a week. Within the last few weeks here, I'll just say, we were...
Now, when you say going to wholesalers, do you mean to pick up orders?
Bigger dealers than myself to sell. Both, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
People these days have their particulars that they want, regardless of advice, that I give or whoever online or whatever else. Some people are dead set. They want, American Eagles. Some people do not want American Eagles. They don't want to pay the additional fee, the additional premium. Just wild stuff. But I'll say this, within the last few weeks here, we were taking multiple hundreds of ounces to one of our wholesalers to sell down a little bit and cash up a little bit. And before I could even arrive there, let's say about an hour and a half drive, the shop was calling me requesting a large amount of them back to resell over the counter. It's been extremely active and the prices are extremely volatile. But I think that silver is probably something to hold on to forever. Gold is much more stable.
Yeah.
Silver, a lot of back and forth, but I have a long-term thought on silver that it's going to be probably money someday. There was a study done a few years back here, I think just before COVID, that the average American working over 18 couldn't even afford $400 in their worst emergency.
Right.
So, that being said, you've got, gold sitting at almost 7 times that now. It's getting out of reach of most people, I think. And I think if we were to have a financial system based on gold again, it would have to be a paper fiat based on gold, because it would have to be fractional, something like a cryptocurrency or something like that. Most people just literally cannot afford gold anymore. I've heard statements by coin dealers, investors, you name it, commodities and metals traders, most of my life and my career now, that copper's too cheap, gold's too expensive. If we ever had a full-on collapse of the US dollar and go to Mad Max in this country, so to speak, silver would be it. Silver would be the money again.
Because you can go down to a gram of silver, which is basically, a little over $1.
Yes. A lot of other speculation on that. People will try to retort that and say, well, they won't bother with silver. They'll just be barter and trade. Well, how do you amass a holding then? You have to have something as a placeholder, like we have cash or, whatnot. It's you have to have something as a go-between. Apples to apples, great, but apples and oranges, there's going to be some change in the middle, and you got to make do for that.
Well, let's say, like you said, dollar collapse, right? I try to think about this, and I try to envision what's going to happen. Is it going to be a situation where, hey, guys, we got to confiscate everybody's metals, and everybody starts off with 0?
I think if the government tried to do the metal confiscation thing again, like they did back in 33 or whatnot, you would probably see a public outcry and outrage, especially from one side. I think there's a lot of people out there that think that we can get away with printing forever and sweeping it under the rug. I do not think that's the case. You will probably see the people that hold mass quantities of metals become enriched, and the people that have none become very poor, especially if there's no cash anymore to deal with. You're going to see some changing, I think. A lot of people speculate that shops like ours that deal in gold and silver would become like the bank if the bank was no longer. But what do we pay them out for if we're buying gold and silver? Are you at that point you're just trading? You're not really buying and selling anymore. You're just trading.
Right.
So only time will tell.
Just changing the subject for a second, getting back to refineries and wholesalers. Is the money still good with them as far as like the speed of the money? Because I hear a couple of different YouTube channels that when the refineries and the wholesale start slowing down, that's going to
Sure.
reduce the price.
You can always tell when they are getting full, so to speak, because their buy price backs off. Most of the biggest people are good for tens of millions, which is, not anywhere near what most of us are going to get up to. And you definitely see a difference in the patterning. They'll charge less to purchase their products and offer less when they're kind of getting their fill, so to speak. A much more premium product is obviously going to have a higher, premium on it, dollar cost, wise. But yeah, you can see well, I'll tell you, just in the last several weeks here, since we've seen action finally on silver and new records on gold again, when I go to my wholesalers or refiners, I generally make appointments, and there is long waiting lines that I've never had to deal with before in my career, ever.
Do you worry about liquidity with them? Like, in other words, they're going to say, hey, look, we can't pay you today. You'll get a check in 2 weeks? Because I've heard that too.
Some of the bigger outfits are doing that already.
They're starting to do that.
Yeah.
They didn't do that before, though, right? It was like you show up and boom.
Some of them that are like mail order services and things, when you mail into them, they're kind of slow boat anyway. Okay. They're not in a hurry to turn around and your stuff, and they're not in a hurry to drain their account just so they can sit on your stuff. But at the same time, they want to turn it around rapidly enough to where you're not upset, waiting on your money because they want you to come back to them again. So I would say there's a mixed bag on that.
When you bring silver to a wholesaler or a refinery, right? How do you decide? They're two different entities, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. Refiners are typically going to be for odd weight, things that are not what they call today, in today's terms, retail friendly. There's a bunch of pieces out there that are odd weights that are still very known and trusted. The British sovereign, gold sovereign, things like this, 0.2354 ounce troy of gold. Most people, you tell them when they're coming in to buy gold for the first time, well, this is an ounce, this is a half, this is a quarter, this is a tenth, so on and so forth. This one's 0.2354, and they go, oh, never mind. You see the eyes just glaze over, and the scared look comes across the face. But most people can't even think in those terms. They're not understanding of how to do the math or whatnot. We try to break it down in the most simplest terms in here, and we want to educate people. That's a big part of what sets us apart, from the others in this area. I think that type of stuff. Some of them are still well recognized, but 1 ounce maples and Krugerrands and Eagles are not getting melted down.
No, they're going off to the
kind of beat
wholesale,
up. Yeah, they'll be sold as scruffy for a little bit of a discount or something like that. But the jewelry quality gold, bars that are off weight, that stuff all gets melted down and rehypothecated into a refiner's bars or whatnot, or into raw bars that are going to government mints and things like that for further refining and minting.
Now, what about like 100-ounce bars? Because I've heard 100-ounce bars are tough to get rid of.
Well, and especially in today's terms.
Even tougher now, yeah.
Well, you're talking about, if most people can't afford gold. Now, 100-ounce bar is with almost 20% or so, maybe more, over gold now for a 100-ounce bar. I only recommend the purchase of a 100-ounce bar as a cost average lever for the rest of your stack. They're just so illiquid, so hard to move.
So I look around through the cases here, right, and I see you have, you've got about 8 or 9 different trays of stuff. You have some stuff in it's like maybe bargain bin stuff. How do you decide what goes where?
We break things down in categories. General bullion, standard products, better and more collector bullion, rare numismatic certified coins, rare and numismatic raw coins, sets and commemoratives and things like that.
Average Jane, she loves the Australian stuff. The Australian stuff never seems to make it over into that bargain bin. That's where I like to shop from.
It's a lot lower mintage, yeah. A lot lower mintage on Australian, especially the Kookaburra.
Yeah.
The koalas, they do okay. They're a little bit better, but the Kookaburras always seem to have a huge premium over spot. Especially some of the lower mintage earlier pieces from that series. And they've done 10-ounce rounds, really interesting and neat to see there. Yeah. Again, rarity. It's like with anything in coins, rarity over age by far. There are coins that are 130, 150 years old that are, dime a dozen, so to speak. very, very common. You can buy handfuls for, very inexpensive. And there are coins from just the last 3 or 4 years here that are extremely rare and have doubled, tripled, so on in value. The gold piece put out in 2019, the V75,
Right.
originally put out for a price well over gold, and a lot of people I heard scoff at this and, oh, I would never pay this price, whatnot, blah, 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 blah. But nowadays, you're looking at prices that are, 8, 10, 12 times the value that they paid. So, and only in 4 years.
Well, look at the
5 years.
flowing hair. What's going on with that?
Yes, anything that comes out from the mint seems to have a little pattern, especially if it's a lower mintage, limited production type of a piece. I coined a term years ago I call the eBay effect. It seems that anything limited edition by the mint sells out on the mint website almost immediately. These guys take it and run to eBay and put it on there and run the price into the stratosphere.
Right.
And some of these folks out there will pay and pay and pay until they get their fill. Well, once the final person has paid the most that they will and they start to come back down again, you see just a drastic crash, back down to very minimal levels, and you can buy these things at huge discounts. And then you see a slow, steady march to where they should have been all along, and the realistic price discovery starts creeping back in. I tell people in here pretty regularly, especially if they're new to buying gold and silver and stacking, do not look at gold and silver prices every minute of every day like it's some kind of a game or something to watch. You will drive yourself absolutely crazy.
Well, it's definitely long term,
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for watching part 2. Part 3 coming tomorrow. Average Joe out.